The vote took 11 seconds. 47 representatives from 47 species raised their appendages, tentacles, or claws in approval. One representative, a thin gray creature named Talus from the Velan system, kept her arms down. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. The matter was simple. A planet called Earth had been discovered in an outer spiral arm. It had water, minerals, and a species that had barely reached their own moon. The Draven Imperium wanted permission to conduct a standard pacification campaign. They had done this 47 times before. It always worked. High Commander Soren received the approval notice while eating his evening meal. He smiled with all 3 rows of teeth. Another easy conquest. Another promotion. He assembled his fleet of 200 warships and set course for the small blue planet. The journey took 6 days. When the Draven fleet emerged from their jump point near Earth's moon, Soren expected panic. He expected primitive broadcasts filled with screaming and prayers. Instead, he received a calm transmission from something called the United Earth Defense Council. Unidentified vessels, you have entered restricted space. State your intentions. Soren laughed. Restricted space. These creatures had no idea what restricted meant. He broadcast his response to the entire planet. People of Earth, I am High Commander Soren of the Draven Imperium. Your world now belongs to the Galactic Council. You will surrender all military assets, all government control, and all natural resources. Resistance will result in punishment. You have 1 hour to comply. The response came in 12 minutes. This is Admiral David Reyes of the United Earth Defense Council. Our answer is no. Leave our system or face the consequences. Soren had heard defiance before. It never lasted. He selected 3 cities at random from his scans. One in a place called Europe, one in Asia, one in South America. He gave the order. 3 beams of concentrated plasma struck the planet's surface. 14 million humans died in less than 30 seconds. Soren waited for the surrender message. He waited for the begging, the pleading, the desperate offers of cooperation. This was the part he enjoyed most. The moment when primitive species realized they had no power, no hope, and no future except what he allowed them. Earth went silent. 1 hour passed. Then 2. Then 6. Soren's communication officer looked confused. High Commander, we are receiving no transmissions from the planet. All broadcast signals have stopped. They are preparing their surrender, Soren said. They need time to accept their defeat. His tactical officer frowned at her screen. Sir, I am detecting movement on the planet's surface. Large-scale movement. Military formations are repositioning around the globe. Repositioning for what? I am not certain, sir. But they appear to be moving toward launch facilities. Soren waved his claw dismissively. They have primitive rockets. Chemical propulsion. They cannot reach us. The tactical officer's scales turned pale. Sir, I am detecting launches. Multiple launches. From every continent. How many? I am still counting. She paused. Over 300 so far. And sir, these are not rockets. The energy signatures suggest nuclear propulsion. They are much faster than our estimates suggested. Soren leaned forward. Nuclear propulsion? The file said they abandoned that technology. The file was wrong, sir. The first human ship cleared the atmosphere 7 minutes later. It was ugly. It was crude. It looked like it had been welded together from scrap metal and anger. But it moved fast, and it was not alone. More ships followed. Then more. Then more. Within 1 hour, over 500 human vessels had reached orbit. They formed into attack groups with precision that surprised Soren. These were not panicked survivors. These were organized military units following established battle plans. Sir, the communication officer said, his voice shaking. We are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Put it through. A human face appeared on screen. It was an older male with dark skin and gray hair. His expression was completely calm. His eyes were not. High Commander Soren. My name is Admiral David Reyes. 6 hours ago, you killed 14 million of my people. I have spent those 6 hours identifying every ship in your fleet, analyzing your weapon frequencies, and coordinating with every military force on my planet. He paused. We are coming up, and we are not coming to negotiate. The transmission ended. Soren felt something he had not felt in 30 years of conquest. It took him a moment to recognize it. Feared that he opened a channel to the Galactic Council. Priority 1. Emergency classification. This is High Commander Soren requesting immediate military support. The humans are not surrendering. Repeat, the humans are not surrendering. They are counterattacking. Back on Velo's station, Counselor Talus read the message and closed her eyes. She had tried to warn them. The ancient observation files on Earth were clear. This species had survived ice ages, plagues, and asteroid impacts. They had invented weapons capable of destroying their entire world and then chosen not to use them. They were not like other primitive species, but nobody had listened. Nobody ever listened. The Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake. And now, as human ships closed the distance to the Draven fleet with weapons charging and crews ready to die, the galaxy was about to learn exactly how terrible that mistake was. The vote had taken 11 seconds. The consequences would last forever. Nobody had warned Soren about the ramming. The first human ship to reach his fleet was a small attack craft. Its weapons were damaged, its shields were gone, and its engines were failing. By every military standard, it should have retreated. Instead, it accelerated directly toward a Draven destroyer. The pilot ejected 3 seconds before impact. The explosion tore the destroyer in half. Soren watched in disbelief as the human pilot floated in space, surrounded by debris, calmly activating a rescue beacon. The pilot had destroyed a ship worth more than his entire planet's economy and seemed completely unconcerned about his own survival. This was not how wars were supposed to work. The battle lasted 9 hours. Soren had fought 12 pacification campaigns. He had never lost more than 3 ships in any of them. By hour 4, he had lost 22. By hour 7, he had lost 36. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. When their ships were disabled, the crews did not surrender. They put on space suits and attached explosives to Draven hulls. When their weapons ran empty, they used their ships as weapons. When they were captured, they gave only their names and identification numbers, nothing else. Captain Nina Okoye led a squadron of 12 fighters against a Draven carrier. She lost 8 of her pilots in the attack. The remaining 4 destroyed the carrier's engine array and left it drifting. When Soren sent ships to rescue the carrier's crew, Okoye's squadron was already gone, hunting the next target on Earth's surface. Things were worse. 2 Draven landing ships had crashed during the initial human counterattack. Soren expected the humans to destroy them. Instead, human military teams captured them intact. Within 12 hours, a scientist named Dr. Paul Anderson had identified a critical flaw in Draven shield technology. The shields operated on rotating frequencies. There were 700 possible combinations. Draven military computers needed 3 minutes to cycle through them. Dr. Anderson built a device that could do it in 4 seconds. By hour 6, human weapons were cutting through Draven shields like they did not exist. Soren finally gave the order to retreat. His fleet had entered Earth's system with 200 ships. 163 remained operational. They formed up and began moving toward the jump point that would take them back to Draven space. The humans followed. Soren's tactical officer reported the pursuit with a trembling voice. "Sir, the human fleet is matching our course. They are not breaking off. They cannot follow us through the jump point," Soren said. "They do not have the navigation data. Sir, they captured 2 of our ships. They have everything." The jump point activated. Draven ships began passing through, one by one, escaping to the safety of their own territory. Soren's flagship was among the last to enter. On the other side, he expected relief. He expected safety. He found neither. Captain Nina Okoye's fighter was the first human ship through the jump point. She had attached her craft to the hull of a Draven transport and ridden through undetected. Behind her, 47 more human ships emerged. They had followed the Draven fleet through the gateway. No species had ever pursued an enemy through a jump point retreat. It was considered impossible, suicidal, and pointless. The humans did not seem to care about any of those things. Soren sent an emergency transmission to the Galactic Council. His claws were shaking as he spoke. "This is High Commander Soren. The humans are pursuing us into Draven space. They followed us through the jump point. We need immediate military support. Repeat, we need immediate support." Counselor Talus received the message in her private chamber. She had been reviewing the ancient observation files on Earth, the ones that had been classified and forgotten for 300 years. The files contained a warning that nobody had bothered to read. Subject species demonstrates extreme aggression when provoked. Recommend permanent non-contact status. Do not engage under any circumstances. Talos forwarded the files to every member of the Galactic Council. Then she drafted a response to Soren. High Commander, the Council is convening an emergency session. Military support is being discussed. In the meantime, we recommend you do not engage the humans further. Retreat to the nearest fortified position and await instructions. Soren read the message and felt cold spreading through his body. The Council was discussing support. That meant they were afraid. The Galactic Council was never afraid. Behind him, the human fleet was growing. More ships were coming through the jump point every hour. They were not stopping to rest. They were not negotiating. They were hunting. Captain Okoye broadcast a message on all Draven frequencies. Her voice was calm and clear. Draven forces, this is Captain Nina Okoye of the United Earth Defense Force. You attacked our world without warning. You killed 14 million innocent people. We are not here to conquer you. We are here for justice. Surrender your commanders and face trial, or we will come and take them ourselves. The message repeated on a loop as the human fleet advanced. Soren realized something terrible. This was not a war. This was a hunt, and he was the prey. The prisoner was treated better than he deserved. Subcommander Reth had been Soren's second in command. His ship had been disabled during a skirmish near the Draven border station. He expected torture. He expected death. He expected the kind of treatment Draven officers gave to captured enemies. The humans gave him a clean cell, warm food, and medical attention for his injuries. This confused him more than anything else that a human officer visited him on the third day. She was small, with brown hair and tired eyes. She sat across from him with a recording device and a translation unit. Subcommander Reth, my name is Lieutenant Sarah Webb. I am here to ask you some questions. You do not have to answer. You will not be harmed either way. Reth stared at her. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Treating me this way. I helped kill 14 million of your people. You should want me dead. Lieutenant Webb's expression did not change. What I want and what is right are not always the same thing. You are a prisoner of war. You have rights under our laws, even if your people do not recognize such things. I do not understand. I know, Webb said quietly. That is the problem. 3 days later, Reth provided information about Draven military positions. Nobody had threatened him. Nobody had hurt him. He simply could not understand people who would treat an enemy with kindness, and that confusion broke something inside him. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was falling apart. Counselor Talos stood before the assembly, her gray skin pale with stress. Behind her, a holographic display showed the path of the human fleet through Draven space. Red dots marked destroyed military outposts. Blue dots marked captured stations. Yellow dots marked places where Draven forces had surrendered. There were a lot of yellow dots. The humans are not behaving like conquerors, Talos reported. They are behaving like police officers. They take prisoners. They treat wounded enemies. They broadcast surrender offers in the Draven language before every engagement. This is not revenge. This is something else. A Korvathi representative raised a tentacle. What do they want? Justice, Talos said. They want the officers who ordered the attack on Earth to face trial. They want compensation for the families of the dead. They want guarantees that this will never happen again. And if we refuse, then they keep coming. The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some species wanted to send a massive fleet to stop the humans. Others wanted to surrender immediately. A few suggested destroying Earth while the human fleet was away from home. Talos waited for silence, then spoke again. I have been reading the ancient observation files on humanity, files that were classified before any of us were born. I think you need to hear what they say. She activated a recording. A mechanical voice filled the chamber. Subject species, Homo sapiens. Planet of origin, Earth. Classification, extreme threat. Notes. This species has survived 5 mass extinction events. They have waged continuous warfare against each other for their entire recorded history. They developed nuclear weapons capable of destroying their civilization and then chose not to use them. They practice both extreme cruelty and extreme compassion, sometimes simultaneously. Recommendation: do not contact. Do not provoke. Do not engage under any circumstances. The recording ended. This file is 300 years old, Talos said. Someone read it. Someone classified it. And then someone approved the Draven attack anyway. I want to know who. The chamber went silent. Far from the council, The human fleet reached the edge of Draven core territory. Admiral Reyes stood on his command ship and studied the tactical display. The Draven homeworld was 2 days away. Billions of civilians lived there, most of whom had nothing to do with the attack on Earth. His communications officer approached. "Sir, we have received messages from 3 council species. They want to send ambassadors to meet with you." "What do they want?" "They say they voted against the attack on Earth. They want to help negotiate a peaceful resolution." Reyes nodded slowly. "Allow them to approach, but scan their ships carefully. I want no surprises." The ambassadors arrived the next day. A Velen, a Korvathi, and a small furry creature from a species Reyes did not recognize. They stood in his conference room, surrounded by human marines, and tried not to look terrified. Reyes sat down across from them. "Thank you for coming. I have one question before we begin." The Velen ambassador straightened. "Ask, did any of your species vote to approve the attack on my world?" The ambassadors looked at each other. "No," the Velen said. "We voted against it. The Draven had majority support. Our objections were ignored." Reyes studied them for a long moment. Then he leaned back in his chair. "Good. Then we can talk." The negotiations lasted 6 hours. By the end, Reyes had agreed to halt his advance temporarily while the ambassadors returned to the council with his terms. The terms were simple. Surrender the commanders who ordered the attack. Pay reparations to the victims' families. Allow human observers at all future council military votes. The ambassadors left with hope in their hearts. But as they departed, one of them asked a final question. "Admiral, what happens if the council refuses?" Reyes looked out the window at his fleet, hundreds of ships crewed by people who had lost friends and family in the attack on Earth. "Then I continue to the Draven homeworld," he said, "and I take what I came for." The ambassador nodded and said nothing else. There was nothing else to say. Soren's own officers came for him at midnight. He was sleeping in his quarters aboard his flagship when the door opened. 3 Draven soldiers stood in the entrance. They were not pointing weapons at him, but their expressions told him everything he needed to know. "What is this?" he demanded. "High Commander, you are being detained," the lead officer said. "By order of the Draven High Council." "On what charge?" "War crimes. The humans have demanded your surrender. Our government has agreed." Soren felt his legs weaken. "You cannot do this. I followed orders." The Galactic Council approved the attack. The Council approved pacification. "You ordered the bombardment of civilian cities. That was your decision, Commander, and now it is your consequence." They took him to a shuttle. The shuttle took him to the human flagship. Admiral Reyes was waiting in the hangar bay. He stood with his hands behind his back, surrounded by Marines in full combat armor. His face showed no emotion as Soren was led before him. "High Commander Soren," Reyes said, "you are charged with crimes against humanity, specifically the murder of 14 million civilians through orbital bombardment. You will be given a trial. You will have defense advocates. You will have the opportunity to speak. Do you understand?" Soren understood nothing. Trials were for equals. Prisoners were supposed to be executed or enslaved. This was not how war worked. "Why?" he asked. "Why give me a trial? You could simply kill me." Reyes looked at him for a long moment. "Because that is not who we are." The trial was broadcast across the galaxy. Every species in the Galactic Council watched as humans conducted a formal military tribunal. Soren sat in a chair, surrounded by translation devices, while human lawyers presented evidence. Video recordings of the bombardment. Communication logs showing Soren's orders. Casualty reports from the destroyed cities. The humans had also assigned Draven defense advocates. These were officers who had surrendered and agreed to cooperate. They argued that Soren was following standard Draven military procedure, that the Galactic Council had approved the campaign, that the humans were applying laws that did not exist in galactic space. The tribunal listened to everything. On the second day, families of the victims were allowed to speak. A woman named Maria Santos stood before the court. She had lost her husband and 2 children in the bombardment of Buenos Aires. "I do not want revenge," she said, her voice steady despite her tears. "I want my children back, but I cannot have that. So instead, I want justice. I want the galaxy to know that you cannot kill innocent people and walk away. I want every species watching to understand that actions have consequences." She looked directly at Soren. "I do not hate you, Commander. I pity you. You come from a culture that sees conquest as normal and murder as acceptable. But I want you to live a long life in prison, thinking about the families you destroyed. I want you to understand what you did." Soren had no response. The verdict came on the third day: guilty of war crimes, guilty of mass murder, guilty of crimes against sentient life. The sentence was life imprisonment in a human facility, with no possibility of release. As Soren was led away, he passed Admiral Reyes one final time. He stopped and asked the question that had been burning in his mind. "You had the power to destroy my homeworld. 300 ships in orbit, billions of my people, defenseless. Why did you not do it?" Reyes met his eyes. "Because killing innocent people is wrong, Commander. It was wrong when you did it to us. It would be wrong if we did it to you. That is the difference between us." Soren was taken to his cell. He would spend the next 40 years there, watching broadcasts of a galaxy that was changing without him. Outside the human flagship, Counselor Tallis requested permission to board. She was granted access and led to Admiral Reyes's office. "That was unexpected," she said, sitting across from him. "Most species would have executed him publicly. We are not most species." "No," Tallis agreed. "You are not." She folded her thin gray hands on the desk. "What happens now, Admiral? The Draven have surrendered. Soren is imprisoned. Your demands have been met. Do you return to Earth?" Reyes leaned forward. "Not yet. We have questions." "About what?" "About everything. Why Earth was never contacted. Why we were classified as a restricted zone and then attacked anyway. Why the Galactic Council approves campaigns like this against developing worlds." He paused. "We have been watching galactic communications for decades, Counselor. We know about other attacks, other species that were pacified. We want answers." Tallis felt cold spreading through her body. "You have been monitoring our communications? Since we detected our first extraterrestrial signal 60 years ago. We knew we were not alone. We knew someone would eventually come. We prepared for war while hoping for peace." Reyes stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "The Council has much to answer for, and we intend to ask the questions." Tallis understood then that the war was not over. It was just beginning. The human delegation arrived without weapons. This frightened the Galactic Council more than anything else. 47 species had gathered in the Great Chamber on Velos Station, surrounded by thousands of armed guards, protected by orbital defense platforms and warships. The humans walked in wearing simple uniforms, carrying nothing but translation devices and data tablets. They did not look like people who needed weapons. Admiral Reyes led the delegation. Behind him walked 3 other humans and Counselor Tallis, who had agreed to serve as their guide. They stopped in the center of the chamber, surrounded by representatives from across the galaxy. A Korvathi elder spoke first. "Humans, you have been granted an audience with the Galactic Council. State your purpose." Reyes looked around the room. "We are not here to petition for membership. We are not here to ask for anything. We are here to demand answers." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "You demand." The Korvathi's tentacles twitched with anger. "You are a single species. We are 47. You do not demand anything from us." "We do today." Reyes activated his data tablet. A holographic display appeared above the chamber floor. 300 years ago, your predecessors classified Earth as a restricted observation zone. The file said clearly, "Do not contact. Do not provoke. Do not engage." Someone ignored that classification and approved the Draven attack. "We want to know who." No one answered. "We also want to know about this." Reyes changed the display. A new set of images appeared. A green planet covered in forests. Then the same planet, burned and lifeless. The Selvari homeworld. Pacified by the Draven 60 years ago. Population before, 2 billion. Population after, 0. The chamber went silent. And this. Another image. A water world with floating cities. Then empty ocean. The Aquari civilization. Pacified 43 years ago. They had developed early space flight. They were classified as a potential threat. The Council approved their elimination. More images followed. World after world. Species after species. Billions of lives erased with the approval of the representatives sitting in this room. "We have been monitoring your communications for 60 years, Reyes said. "We know about every pacification campaign, every vote, every species that was eliminated because they were considered inconvenient. The galaxy thinks you are a government. You are not. You are a machine for genocide. A Draven representative stood. This is outrageous. Those campaigns were necessary for galactic security. Those species were dangerous. Were they? Reyes turned to face him. The Selvari were herbivores who had never developed weapons. The Aquari had no military at all. You killed them because they might someday become a threat. You killed them because it was easier than living with neighbors you could not control. Talus stepped forward. Admiral Reyes has shared this information with us because he wants the galaxy to know the truth. But he has also shared it with every species outside this chamber. The broadcast began 10 minutes ago. Every citizen of every council world is watching this right now. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted at each other. Guards moved to defensive positions. Several species began transmitting emergency messages to their homeworlds. Reyes stood calmly in the center of the chaos. "We are not here to conquer you," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. "We are here to end this. No more pacification campaigns. No more genocide votes. No more destroying species because you fear what they might become." A Velen representative approached him. "And if we refuse? If the council votes to mobilize against Earth, then we will defend ourselves. And when we win, we will dismantle the council entirely and build something better in its place." "You are very confident." "We prepared for war for 60 years. We built ships in secret. We trained soldiers without your knowledge. We developed weapons you have never seen." Reyes paused. "But we would rather not use them. We would rather find allies who share our values. Species who believe that every civilization has the right to exist." The Velen representative looked at Talus. Something passed between them. "The Velen people withdraw from the Galactic Council," the representative announced. "We stand with humanity." Another voice rose from the crowd. "The Korvathi withdraw as well. We have done terrible things in the name of security. It is time for a different path." One by one, 12 species announced their withdrawal. They moved to stand behind the human delegation, forming a new alliance in the heart of the old order. The remaining council members stared in disbelief. "You are making a terrible mistake," a Draven representative hissed. "The council will not allow this rebellion. We will crush you all." Reyes smiled for the first time. "You are welcome to try." The council issued its ultimatum 2 hours later. Humanity and its allies would submit to galactic law, surrender their military assets, and accept council oversight. Refusal would mean war. Reyes read the ultimatum and drafted his response. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all intelligent beings are created equal, that they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Your ultimatum is rejected. If you want a war, you know where to find us." He broadcast the message to every world in the galaxy. The galaxy held its breath, and humanity prepared for the fight of its existence. 2,000 warships should have been enough. The Council fleet emerged from their jump points around Earth, the largest military force assembled in galactic history. Draven dreadnoughts, Karath carriers, vessels from 30 species who had decided that humanity must be stopped before it grew too powerful. They expected a small defense force. They expected a quick victory. They found something else entirely. The human fleet was waiting for them. 500 Earth vessels, joined by 300 Velen ships, 200 Korvathi cruisers, and smaller contingents from the 12 other species who had allied with humanity. Behind them, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, protected by orbital platforms that bristled with weapons. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of his flagship and studied the enemy formation. This was the moment everything had been building toward. 6 months of preparation. 6 months of building alliances. 6 months of waiting for the Council to make its move. "All ships, hold position," he ordered. "Do not fire unless fired upon." His tactical officer frowned. "Sir, they outnumber us almost 2 to 1. Should we not strike first?" "No. We wait." The Council fleet advanced slowly, weapons charging. Their commander, a Draven admiral named Chorus, broadcast a final warning. "Human forces, this is your last chance to surrender. Stand down and accept Council authority, or we will destroy you." Reyes did not respond. He watched his communication screens, waiting. The first message came from the Draven homeworld. "This is the Draven Civilian Council. We are removing our military authorization for this engagement. Admiral Chorus, return home immediately." Chorus ignored the message. More messages followed. From Korath. From a dozen other worlds. Civilian governments demanding their fleets withdraw. Citizens flooding communication channels with protests. The broadcast of council atrocities had done its work. Billions of beings across the galaxy now knew what their governments had done in their names. They were not happy. Reyes opened a channel to the enemy fleet. Admiral Chorus, your own people are ordering you to stand down. I suggest you listen. My people are confused, Chorus replied. When I return victorious, they will understand. And if you do not return victorious? Chorus did not answer. The first shots came from an unexpected source. A Korath cruiser broke formation and fired on the Draven flagship. Then another ship fired. Then another. The Council fleet began tearing itself apart as crews mutinied against officers who refused to obey civilian orders. Reyes watched the chaos unfold. All Allied ships, hold fire. This is their fight now. Within 3 hours, the Council fleet had fractured. Half the ships had either surrendered to their own crews or retreated through jump points. The remaining vessels, still loyal to the old order, faced the combined might of humanity's alliance. They did not stand a chance. The battle lasted 40 minutes. Human ships targeted engines and weapons, disabling rather than destroying. Velen vessels jammed communications, preventing coordinated resistance. Korvathi cruisers captured escape pods and offered medical aid to survivors. When it was over, Admiral Chorus surrendered aboard his burning flagship. Reyes accepted the surrender personally. You fought well, he told the Draven admiral. But you fought for the wrong side. Chorus looked at him with exhausted eyes. I do not understand you, human. We tried to destroy your world. We killed millions of your people. Why do you not hate us? I do hate what you did, Reyes admitted. But hatred does not build anything. It only destroys. And we are tired of destruction. The Galactic Council collapsed 3 weeks later. In its place, a new galactic assembly formed. Humanity was a founding member, alongside the Velen, the Korvathi, and 20 other species who had chosen reform over conquest. The Assembly's founding document was based on human principles. All species were equal. All species had rights. No more pacification campaigns. No more genocide votes. No more destroying civilizations because they might someday be a threat. Counselor Talus became the first non-human ambassador to Earth. She arrived in Geneva on a sunny afternoon and stood before a crowd of thousands. I came to apologize, she said. For centuries, my people watched Earth from afar and did nothing. We knew what the Council was. We knew what they would eventually do to your world. And we stayed silent because silence was safe. She paused. Humanity taught us that silence is never safe. That standing by while others suffer makes us complicit. I hope we have learned that lesson. The crowd applauded. Admiral Reyes retired 1 month later. He moved to a small house near the ocean and took a job teaching history at a local university. Students came from across the planet to hear his lectures about the war, about first contact, about the galaxy they had joined. One day, a young woman asked him the question everyone wanted to know. Admiral, why did humanity spare the Draven? Why did we spare any of them? They tried to destroy us. Reyes thought for a long moment. Because we could have destroyed them, he said finally. We had the power to burn their worlds, slaughter their children, and end their species forever. No one could have stopped us. And in that moment, when we had absolute power, we chose mercy. Is that not weakness? No, that is strength. Real strength. The kind that builds civilizations instead of destroying them. On the other side of the galaxy, a young Draven student asked the same question in a history class. Why did the humans spare them? The teacher, a Velen with gray skin and kind eyes, smiled. Because they could have, she said. And that is what made them terrifying. That is also what made them worth following. The galaxy was different now, and humanity had made it that way, not through conquest, through example.